So, education really, really matters. And you are getting a good education. Please use it to be a better Muslim and to help speak honestly and straightforwardly to Christians like myself to make me a better Christian. How can that be? Well, in understanding my faith, you are better able to understand your faith. And in understanding your faith, I'm better to understand my faith. And how can I get in any conversation or be in any group like this group and not think? There are deep foundational principles between these two faiths that need more attention than we give them. But too often when we come together, we ask, why do American Christians do this? And the American Christians respond, well, why do radical Muslims do this? We will not find each other in double accusations. By the way, one little story that I tell is that sometimes I've been asked very hard questions by students that I think are on the edge of anger. And I'm an American and a Christian, so here's one that you can ask that question to. And when I've answered as easily as I can, as gently as I can, I turn to Professor Cocker and say, next April, it'll be your turn. Because he will be before the Christian students who will ask similar kinds of questions from their point of view. What do we share? We share from Jesus of Nazareth. We share from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, an absolute call from God for justice in this world, for peace among human beings. And there is no justice where there is no mercy. So we are also called to mercy and forgiveness of one another. And finally, we are called to those things so we can help the poor, so we can help those most in need. That is the calling of every discipline, religious, scientific, and all others. We are here to serve God by serving God's creations. So, I hope education can help me do that better. I hope it can help you as well do that better. I want to say a word or two about how that might happen. First, education is a powerful tool to provide information and insight. So academic and scholarly work is essential. And your founder, Society, knew that and has been a proponent of that and is still part of your university, as it is part of mine. Mine was started by a Baptist minister who said, he made a saying when he started a university to train ministers of higher education in rural Georgia 130 years ago. And my students have put it on a t-shirt. The t-shirt says, "Oh God, deliver us from ignorant ministers." So he's going to educate. My favorite t-shirt that I've seen since I've been at Aligarh, I took a picture of it and put it on my Facebook page, and I've gotten over 80 hits from my friends in a couple of hours. And the t-shirt was worn, I don't know if the student was a student here, but I assume he was. It was in that context. And it said, "Follow your heart, but don't leave your mind behind." Aligarh is helping us follow our hearts and not leave our minds behind. What a good place you are in. So, Islamophobia. A phobia is an exaggerated fear of something. A phobia of spiders. A phobia of darkness. A phobia of Islam. It's not a rational fear. It is an irrational fear. So, one of the first things we have to do, you and I, is to dispel the irrational side of this conflict between persons of different faiths. I give you an example from 800 years ago. 800 years ago in 1219, it was a time like ours, only worse, when the imperial armies of the West had come east in the Crusades and did unspeakable cruelties and savageries in the Muslim world. And it was a time when two armies were facing each other at Damietta in Egypt. And one of the armies was led by Al-Kamil, the Sultan of Egypt, and also in control of Jerusalem. And a little man named Saint Francis of Assisi happened to come east, not to fight, but to make peace. And he finds himself, Francis, who is a Christian monk, Franciscan, he finds himself going across between the two armies. He gets permission from his general to cross the border. They figured he'd be dead in a few hours. And he ends up in the Sultan's tent. And they stay there for a couple of days. The Sultan and the monk, the Christian monk. And no one knows what they said. But we do know when their time was over, the Sultan released the Christian back to his place. And later on, when the Sultan defeated the Christian army, that was the Crusader army, rather than take revenge upon them, he treated them with mercy and justice. And we also know that when Brother Francis came back to Italy, he talked about how he wrote a document on how Christians should travel among Muslims. Here's the first thing that it says. The first thing it says, this would have been about 1220, because it's a little bit after that time. First thing he said, when you meet a Muslim, when you're a Christian, meet a Muslim, immediately become his best servant. Ask what he needs and grant it to him. Ask if there's anything you can do for him and do it for him. Now, I thought of that because when I traveled walking on Aligarh's campus, physics students, theology students came up to me and said, "Can we help you? And why are you here?" And I said, on one of my walks, I said, "Well, I have a stiff back." This was to a physics student I just met. He said, "Let me help you. Let me take you to a doctor." I said, "No, I haven't." He said, "No, please, I want to help you." Now there is someone who is following Islam. There's someone who understands justice, peace, and mercy. The final thing that I want to say to you, it's not final, next to the last, is that when Francis went back home and he wrote about that, he also told his bishop, who was over him, he said, "By the way, I learned something valuable when I was traveling in the East." He said, "Did you know that the Muslims pray 5 times a day?" He said, "I think maybe we should give cloths to all our Christians and suggest to them that they lay the cloths on the ground and then pray to God 5 times a day." So he was impressed by the piety of those he had met. There are certain papers written on this meeting that these two had, but both of these, one a very powerful sultan and military man from position of great power and wealth, and another Christian, a very weak person with no influential and no money, that they came together. So I'm just talking about how different they are. And they came together, and out of it, both of them continued to live mercifully, genuinely, with servant hearts in their own religions, in their own faith. Now, I can't prove this, but it is my guess that one of the most powerful components of them acting mercifully towards persons who are of a different religion is they spent a couple of days talking to each other. Just talking to each other. Now I'm headed for the end. Hassan Kamal, knows that education is important, but doing so is essential. So, I will leave here tomorrow morning early. Some of you will say, I enjoyed that guy being here, and some of you will say, I hope they never bring someone like that again. But none of this will have any significance unless we do something. And what I'm suggesting is what Hassan Kamal suggested. I suggest you get together in a group, perhaps let the friend from Delhi, Bala, I don't know how to pronounce that, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He would help sponsor getting together with persons to talk about the good things in each other's faith. You might begin by talking to Hindu or Christians or others in a group of 5 or 6, not a big hall. Just get to know each other, like the Sultan and the monk. And I would suggest maybe you begin by telling someone what you like best about their faith. Now, that doesn't solve Islamophobia, but it begins a chance for us to come together to do it. Jesus told a parable, a little story, in which a person said, well, a person was accusing another person of being wrong. And Jesus' answer was, wait, before you take the splinter out of your friend's eye, criticizing your friend, take the big stick out of your own eye. I don't propose that Christians have a splinter or Muslims have a splinter. I propose that in my experience, we both have big sticks in our eyes that we need to be self-reflective about and begin by saying, help me understand you, because I don't see things clearly. Now, back in the United States, there is a significant problem with a significant portion in our culture of a kind of irrational fear. I think the fear comes before the hatred. Fear and hatred of persons because they're Muslim. We've talked about some of the significant, and we don't have time to go into all of this, and to all of the reasons for that. But I would say this to you, and I hope it is encouraging to you. All Americans are not alike. And there are a great number, millions and millions of Americans who desire to end the enmity between our faiths. There are also many persons in the United States who are not religious at all. About 20%. If asked, what religion are you affiliated with? They don't check Christian. They check none. They are not affiliated with any religion. So, that is a bit of education, I hope, that I delivered today. When you say Americans do so-and-so, ask which Americans are you talking about? And I need to ask, when I hear my friends, and I will do this when I go home, when I am asked, Muslims, but Muslims do so, I'm going to say, excuse me, which Muslims do you know? And which Muslims are you talking about? Because not all Muslims are alike. So let us begin, at least in a small way, to know each other. And I will end by telling you about some interfaith organizations that my university and my theology students are involved in. One is called Neshama, and it is a group that gets together and sits in silence for about 20 minutes. Because we know that we probably can't pray together in the same way, so we just sit in the same room in each other's presence, praying as we please, or not praying if we please. And then when the 20 minutes is over, we just begin to talk about whatever's come to your mind. There's the Faith Interalliance of Atlanta. There's the Interfaith Community Initiatives. There are the World Pilgrims. The World Pilgrims is a travel agency. I heard yesterday about some of your tourism. And what they specialize in is inviting Jews, Christians, and Muslims in a group of about 20 to travel from wherever in the world those persons are to the city of Jerusalem, which is religiously important to all of them. And they try to arrange for those persons to experience the place fully in their faith. So if you go and you're Muslim, they take you to a mosque. If you're a Christian, they take you to a church. And if you're Jew, you go to the synagogue or the Wailing Wall. This is just another way that we're beginning to try to know each other. The Atlantic Institute, which is out of the Hizmet movement that our friend from Delhi is in, and that was my introduction to the Muslim interfaith conversations. The Atlanta Jewish Committee, which participates in these things. And then the last one I'm going to tell you about, because when you hear those, you think of somebody with money or this group or this organization. I have one student named Corey Brown. He's an African-American student in theology. He got to thinking about these things. He had experienced discrimination himself as an African-American in the United States in the South. And he said, I need to do something about the way people don't get along and seem to hate one another in these different religions, particularly Muslim. So he formed an organization that is called the Bridge Interfaith Alliance. Name doesn't matter as much to me as the fact that he's begun to organize gatherings of families and students and people, and they eat each other's different kinds of ethnic foods, and he puts up tables. So, for instance, when one of the tables that the Muslim community put up was they began to make hijabs for children, no matter what the children's faith. Well, the children love getting those handkerchiefs and being able to cover their heads, and they would laugh and they'd get to take them home. Now, that's not an argument about religion. But I guarantee you, those 4 or 5-year-old children will never see a woman in a hijab again in the way that many adults do. There will be a joy and a warmth to this. It's a very small thing. I'm asking that you do that, and I am promising you that our group will do that. Final word. And this, when Corey Brown has these meetings, he has a big banner like this, and it has his motto on it. He's not a powerful person, not a moneyed person. He just reserved a room and started this movement. The last meeting he had 200 people that came to the meeting. And the motto that he puts on each of his banners when he has it is this motto, and I'll leave you with this. The motto is, we refuse to be enemies. We refuse to be enemies. I pledge to you, I refuse to be your enemy. And I invite you to refuse to be mine. Thank you.
Thank you very much.